We've made a lot of progress, but we have a lot of work to do as well.
Targeted, tricked, and traumatized. People are falling victim to human trafficking every day, and no city in America is immune. Good evening, I'm Brett Thomas.
And I'm Heather Herron. Human trafficking is a growing crime across the state, and everyone from lawmakers to community members are taking notice and taking action.
Almost 1 year ago, our Special 15 Finds Out investigative series, Hidden Predators, exposed the prevalence of sex trafficking in our area. And tonight, investigator Alyssa Iverson continues digging into the issue and looking at where we are now. Alyssa.
Well, we'd all love to say that human trafficking is not an issue now, but the truth is it's going to take a lot longer than a year to eradicate this crime that so tightly grips its victims. But police and advocates across the state are not giving up. In fact, they're working harder than ever to stop human trafficking. Just last December, this Fort Wayne man, 29-year-old Patrick Davis, was sentenced to more than 6 years in prison, convicted on a federal charge of sex trafficking of children. Now, police across the state are still investigating dozens of more cases. Within the last year, education efforts are also expanding. The state attorney general just announced he's adding more police officers and prosecutors to the state's human trafficking investigations unit, all in hopes of making human trafficking in Indiana a thing of the past. It's in hotel rooms across the city.
It's still common, it still occurs.
Victims walking in plain sight.
It's growing by leaps and bounds.
Sex trafficking here in Northeast Indiana.
We're really just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
Ads for girls in Fort Wayne with provocative pictures posted online just this week.
Trafficking does occur. It occurs in our city. Be aware.
Human trafficking is still one of the fastest growing crimes around the world, expected to soon pass the drug trade.
We rescue less than 1% of the kids. So how do we know it hasn't surpassed it?
But efforts to stop it are also growing.
I'm really proud of Indiana because all the agencies here have worked so hard to increase awareness.
In 2017, the Indiana Trafficking Victim Assistance Program gave human trafficking training to more than 10,000 adults and nearly 2,000 youth across the state. Around 1,800 of those people were in Northeast Indiana.
What we're finding is that the more education and awareness we do, the more trafficking cases are being reported because people are starting to recognize it more. And so that's why awareness is such an important piece of this, because there's a lot of people that don't realize that this is happening right here in Indiana, in Fort Wayne and the surrounding counties.
We'd rather look into a call and it turn out to be nothing than not hear about it and have it continue.
How important is that awareness factor in combating sex trafficking?
It's huge, and I know there are some agencies, state agencies around that are really trying to educate the healthcare providers so that if a victim goes into the emergency room, asking a few other questions may uncover a trafficking case.
Anywhere from 70 to 90% of victims of trafficking reports that while they were being trafficked, they were going to our hospitals or our emergency rooms. So if our healthcare system can get better at identifying these red flags, then hopefully we will be able to identify victims and get them out sooner.
Some red flags: someone who appears scared and might not make eye contact, or have expensive clothes or shoes that they couldn't afford themselves. They might have a lot of cash or hotel keys, and someone might always be with them and seem to be controlling them.
Any parents consistently check their children's social media accounts to make sure they're not being groomed for this kind of trafficking event. And just keep an eye on your kids and know who they're contacting, who they're visiting, who they're hanging out with.
Last October, the FBI and Fort Wayne police rescued 12 women in Fort Wayne and stopped 4 traffickers. Another 13 women were rescued in South Bend. While police are working hard to help victims get out of their situations and put traffickers behind bars, it's not a problem that will be solved quickly.
Many times these victims are so traumatized that really It takes a long time to build trust, to really establish rapport and get the total information on a case. So it's not just something that you can be done with in an hour. It is still here, and it's going to be here for some time to come.
The National Human Trafficking Hotline says from January to June of last year, there were 167 calls in Indiana and 50 trafficking cases reported, identifying a possible 90 victims. But how many cases there really are is hard to tell.
The tragedy we're having right now is we don't have numbers. So they're either inflated or they're underreported.
Dr. Kalyani Gopal is a researcher with the Safe Coalition for Human Rights and says the group plans to soon fund a statewide study to get a better picture of what human trafficking looks like in Indiana. Have we turned the corner on sex trafficking yet?
I don't think so.
No, not even close.
What's it going to take to get there?
More education, more enforcement, and really more eyes out there looking for these types of things. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, you may see it and just not notice it.
Demand, dealing with demand.
Until we address the demand, we're not going to really be able to have a significant impact on this issue.
Police tried to target buyers in stings and say we need to change the dialogue and call it what it is. Buying sex with a woman who is there under force, fraud, or coercion is rape.
When people are purchasing sex, those are victims of sex trafficking that are impacted by that.
And when we can change the culture that buying sex is not okay, we can start putting a stop to human trafficking.
We've made a lot of progress, but we have a lot of work to do as well.
We just want to make it real clear that Indiana is a no trafficking zone.
Now, if you need help right now, or you think you've seen a case of human trafficking, please call the national hotline right now. That number is there on your screen, 888-373-7888. You can also call the Fort Wayne Police Tip Line. You can join the discussion tonight as well at the downtown University of St. Francis campus at Berry and Ewing Streets. I'll be putting on a presentation about the state of sex trafficking in Fort Wayne, and that starts at 7 o'clock. Now, there are also things that we can all do to help end human trafficking. And while the story was airing, we sent you a push alert right to your phone. Just open that alert, and then I'll follow a link to this web story. You'll find a list of action steps, easy things that you can do right now to join the fight and be part of the solution and put a stop to sex trafficking.
It starts with all of us.
It does. It takes a community to put a stop to this.
All right, thank you so much.
Well, you'll be able to see a special showing of a documentary profiling the stories of several sex trafficking victims in a few weeks. Wayne TV and Great Kids Make Great Communities will host the free screening of I Am Jane Doe at the Downtown Library Theater on February 13th. The show will start at 6, doors open at 5:15. It is free, but space is limited, and you can find a link to register in this story on Wayne.com.
We also have our entire Hidden Predator series on Wayne.com. It's about 30 minutes worth of stories that really dig into how victims are trapped in the trafficking trade and the pitfalls you need to avoid on social media. There's also an hour-long panel discussion with several experts. You can watch all that right now online.